Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Spider-Man No Way Home. Happy New Year, because of course I have not done anything on this channel in like 2 weeks, so I'm doing a batch of reviews the last day of the year. So, Happy New Year. Hope everything's going well for you guys. I got kids, so things are crazy, which is why I haven't done a video in like a month. I don't even know. I honestly don't know. But, my super late review for Spider-Man, it's amazing. There will be spoilers in the second half, which really is going to consist of like 98% of this entire video because there's so little I can say. The movie's really good. The villains are really good. The heroes are really good. It has good comedy. It has insane action. Like, they do some stuff here where they change the way Spider-Man has to fight. Loved it. It was really well done. They have some emotional beats that are really well done. The ending, buck wild. Like, the way they did it, like the whole it's a 2.5 hour movie. The last hour and a half was just like a roller coaster ride that was just like, oh, this is crazy. Oh, that's crazy too. I didn't see that one coming. This action's amazing. This moment's crazy. Just so good. So good. I think that's about it. I do have one gripe. There's one gripe, and I can do this without spoilers. They did not touch on people knowing who Spider-Man was as much as I would have liked. I think the first 40 minutes or so I felt was a little slow. I may have slightly been affected by the fact that we had all these different, leaks and rumors and this and that. So I may have kind of just been like, all right, like kind of keep going. Excuse me. But at the same time, I know that there were parts of it that I really enjoyed, and then it was like, as a whole, that first, like I said, 40 minutes or so, I was just like, I feel like they didn't touch on it enough. Like the issue of Spider-Man revealed, also a murderer. That should have been a much bigger toll on the film than it really was. Like that, initially, that's what we thought the main plot of the movie would be. It was like, okay, they found out he was Spider-Man at the end of the last film. We go into this one, he's Spider-Man. It's crazy. Everybody knows he's Spider-Man. People also know think he's a killer and also Spider-Man. So then it's just like, how does he deal with that? Well, within 40 minutes, it was kind of wrapped up super quick. Like, I know that he goes to Doctor Strange to do the spell and things go awry, and that's where we get the rest of the film. But the whole thing of like, holy crap, Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, everyone knows who he is. This is insane. It's not that big of a deal. They do a little montage of issues he has. Someone threw some paint on his costume. That was about it. Like, it was really simple. And then it was just like, you're good. Like, everything will be all right. They'll figure it out. And then that was it. And that was kind of it. And then it was, trying to make everyone forget. But it was a really minor thing compared to what you would expect, where it's like, he's completely out there. He is, seen to be a killer by some people. All these issues that you think would come of this, they're pretty minute. And it's pretty quick. It's like, okay, yeah, he kind of dealt with that for a second or two. Okay, dimensional stuff. And that was how the movie played out. So, that's about it. Excuse me. Slightly sick, so you have to forgive me. I swallowed that so bad. I swallowed that so fast. Almost died just now. But, going into spoilers, full-on spoilers. As you can see, I got my Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider figure. Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider outfit. And then I have another figure that we'll get to when we get to like the end of the spoilers, which if you collect 1/6 scale figures, you might know what that figure already is. It is another Spider-Man figure, of course, and you probably already know based on what happens at the end of this movie. But just to kick things off, slight spoiler. Odds are if you're watching this, you've already seen Hawkeye. I'd say watch Hawkeye. That's all I can really say. But I'm about to give a slight spoiler as well. So Wednesday, I was like, okay, that thing happens. And I was like, okay, I think we're going to get a Wednesday-Thursday combo. Wednesday, we get Kingpin. I'm like, I think the rumors are true. They had already announced it technically before the movie came out. Like, Daredevil will be in the MCU and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, it's going to happen. He's definitely in it. But also, what if he's not? I'm going to be upset. And then Thursday rolls around. Wednesday was nice. We got Kingpin. But Thursday was amazing because we got Daredevil. Excuse me. Charlie Cox showing up was like the greatest thing ever. It's cool we got other Spider-Man. And I wanted to see them in the movie, but if I had to pick, I would have preferred Daredevil. I wanted him more than I wanted the other Spider-Man. And I'm glad we got both, because that makes the movie even better. But him showing up in the beginning, he puts the cane down, he catches the brick and all that stuff, I was like, okay, I'm happy. That's all I needed. That was probably the best part of the first like 40 minutes of the movie, really, was just his little cameo. I wish he was in it more, and I was hoping for that, but unfortunately, it was just like, here he is. You can be happy. We got him. Like, we didn't, like, we may have canceled a bunch of cool stuff. Excuse me. But we're bringing some cool stuff back. I hope they bring everything back. Honestly, I think they can fix it. Iron Fist. They can fix it. They can fix it. Like, it ended on such a good cliffhanger. Like, okay, they got, you don't care because it's Iron Fist, so I'm going to just spoil Iron Fist for you. They ended it. He lost his powers. He gave them to a better character. She's using the powers. And then somehow he got his powers back, and he channeled his powers through guns. It was a crazy ending. I was like, okay, I hate this dude pretty much, because I don't know who was writing both seasons of that show, but they clearly didn't watch the one episode of Luke Cage he was in that was like 100 times better than him throughout both the seasons of his own show, because I'm like, whoever wrote that episode gave me hope that season 2 was about to be amazing, and then season 2 was like season 1. It was better. It was definitely better, but that's not saying much. Anyway, Iron Fist aside, I think they can bring it all back and it'll be good, but we got Daredevil. That's all that matters. First 40 minutes felt a little slow. They wrapped it up, and then it was like, oh, the main issue now is we can't go to school together. Not as intense as I would have hoped, but it is what it is. So then we get our cool... Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. We get our cool interdimensional stuff. Doc Ock was great. Green Goblin is phenomenal. Whoever did that was an absolute genius. Was like, what if we just make Green Goblin the big bad? That's smart. And then somehow... in that same writer's room, they had Electro. And it's not to say that Electro's just bad. For one, he wasn't even acting like himself. Like, Jamie Foxx was very comedic and stuff. He was cocky and he was the villain, but he wasn't that comedic. I know he played Itsy Bitsy Spider on the things, I guess, but he wasn't that comedic. And also, he doesn't know who Spider-Man is, and it was just like one of a trillion actual plot holes where it was like, for the genius move of Green Goblin is like a myriad of just insanely idiotic things where it's like, what if we brought Electro in? He knows who Spider-Man is. Well, no, he doesn't, but we're going to put him in there anyway. And they'd even prove, literally at the end of the movie, when he talks to Andrew Garfield, he's like, oh, he thought you'd be black. So he doesn't know who Peter Parker is. And like, you just put that in your own movie. He doesn't know who he is. Also, Doc Ock doesn't know that Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin because nobody knew that except for Harry and Peter. That makes no sense. That's really weird. So that, that's just like a huge thing because they literally explained it like it's bringing in people who didn't just deal with Peter Parker, they know Peter Parker. That's all they had to change. It was like, it's bringing in people that have dealt with Peter Parker before. Like, it was just weird. It was just a weird thing to do where they made such a giant plot hole. And it was just like, okay, well, okay, I guess. It's stupid, but it was entertaining to have Electro, but it was just really dumb the way that they did that. And it was like, excuse me, just change one line. Just change one line and be like, it just happened to pick Electro. That's fine. He could be the one dude who didn't know. That's fine. But to specifically say, like, yeah, it brought in people who know who Peter Parker are, or is, the Peter Parkers are. It just made it a giant plot hole. And then, like I said, they added on to that by having Doc Ock know that Norman was the Green Goblin, because no one knew that, like I said. So, they just had weird plot holes in it. But still, great movie. Still amazing. Green Goblin versus Spider-Man. Wild. Them slamming each other through, like, floors and doing suplexes and junk. I was like, this is so good. Like, that was when it really kicked up. I was like, starting to, it was building up for sure once the villains got together and Peter like, hey, I'm going to help everybody, which was mostly on May's thing. And so it was like, it was ramping up. And then the Spider Sense went off, and I was like, yes, I'm ready for this. And I wasn't even ready for how amazing that ended up being. Like, their fight was so good. And it was just, it wasn't, the flips and spins. It was Peter Parker versus Norman Osborn. And it made me think of, like, an actual comic that's happened where, I forgot what, how comics go. Something happened, and in this very specific fight, Peter, like, lost his power. So he wasn't, like, super strong and all that, and neither was Norman, and it was just Peter versus Norman, just, like, eternal rivals. And that's what it made me think of, because in that comic, they just fought. Like, it was like, I don't have my super strength, I'm not using my webs, They were just punching each other in the face and just fighting in like the snow. I forgot where they were, but it's comics. Really cool moment. And that's what I felt when I was watching this. Even though they had their super strength, which made it even cooler because they were just like, let me just slam you through the floor. Let me, like Peter's jumping on his head, just beating the crap out of him. And Green Goblin's just laughing in his face. And I was like, this is so good. It's so good. And him with the tatters, like without the mask, the costume is so freaking perfect. It was just great. All of it was so fun. And then Aunt May dies. And that was an interesting moment. That was real sad for sure. And they did the official quote. It's not just with great power comes great responsibility. They did like the full actual quote. So that was cool. And then it's super sad and dramatic, and Spider-Man's by himself and just looking at this giant screen, and J. Jonah Jameson just being like, killer, douchebag, all these other things. And so then we go into just, it's hard to even explain what it was. It was something. It was a moment. That's what it was. They opened that portal. It's like, I wish we could see Peter. That portal opened up. As soon as he turned around, I was like, it's about to happen. I was hoping that they'd be in it for a long time. I didn't know how it was going to play out. But I was like, I hope it's not just a cameo. And that was not a cameo. They had Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in this movie. He turned around, he did like that, and I was like, oh, that's Andrew Garfield. Just the way he looked, it was like, oh, hey. I'm like, that's Andrew Garfield. It's happening. It's happening now. I hate being sick. But it's happening now. Comes in, amazing scene. He's holding onto the ceiling. It's like, I don't have to do more. Like, this is enough. This is enough. He doesn't have the tingly thing for bread. Then Tobey Maguire comes in. And it's just like, oh, hey. It's both of them together. And then the third guy's there too, because it's his movie. It was such a good moment. Everyone was losing their mind, of course. Like even when you knew it was going to happen, it was just like, is it really going to happen? I feel like it is. There were so many things where it was like, the rumors are real. It's happening. Andrew Garfield's been lying to us for months. But it's okay. It was such a cool moment to have them both just come in. It was really funny and stuff. And it's like, oh, that's not Spider-Man. It's just some random dude. It was just so good. And then they got with Peter, and then they did their science stuff, and Andrew Garfield put on, like, the actual doctor outfit and, like, the scientist uniform, and I was like, he's doing, like, full scientist Spider-Man, and then they did the meme where it's like, I'm Peter, like, him, Peter, like, they actually did the meme, like, twice, so that was really good, and they talk about the relationships, like, Harry becoming the villain, and then being like, oh, okay, and then he's freaked out, and he's like, I will never betray you, like, it's just silly stuff. All amazing. And then the web cartridge thing and being organic webbing. And they're like, do you get web blocks? Does a web come from anywhere else? Like, the questions the internet is asking. All of it was good. Them teaming up at the end and, like, Peter... excuse me. MCU Peter, there we go. Him being like, hey, I've been on the Avengers, which they don't have. And so it's like, okay, I know how to be on the team. And so they team up and, like, they do their poses on the Statue of Liberty, which totally made me think of X-Men, by the way, when they were, like, on the actual head. And I was like... instantly made me think of X-Men. But they do their landing, and then they fight all the villains and stuff, and it was just like, this is really good. They're just fighting, and it's entertaining. I forgot to even reference the Doctor Strange stuff. That was cool, but at the end of the movie. And they're just fighting on the Statue of Liberty, and it's all really good. And then they have, of course, everybody talked about it, because, like, if you look at the trailer, like, you can see it's Andrew's costume. This scene was so good because it was like, it still hurts him, and they had the emotional moment where they do the great power, and it's like, we lost Uncle Ben, and then this happened, I lost my MJ, which of course is Gwen Stacy, and it was like, I stopped pulling my punches, and I was like, this is so good. That's such a good story. Like, him, like Dark Spider-Man, where it's like, he had a moment where he just lost it, and it was like, that pain and everything just went into him. He basically kind of went Daredevil / Punisher for a little bit, where it was like, I'm having a bad day. You're about to have a bad day. So, and that was cool. And it was very emotional and stuff. It was just like, this is great. This is really good. And then, of course, the ending, all the action, and then their quips, and them talking about stuff, and Tobey Maguire still having the back problems, which was a great reference. Everything was so good. And, Andrew Garfield's character being down on himself because everybody, like, hates those movies and stuff. It's like, hey, you're amazing. Like, don't talk like that. And it's just like, everything was so freaking good. And then they just got to the end, and it was, once again, Spider-Man, Green Goblin. And Peter was MCU Peter, of course, was gonna kill the Green Goblin, and Tobey just steps in. He doesn't say anything or anything. He just catches it, and it's like, they just look. Like, he's freaking out. He's like, I just want to kill this dude. And he's just like, I know you want to kill this dude. Like, that internal Spidey monologue. And it was so good. And then Toby gets stabbed, and I swear it was like a stock scream sound effect. There was some girl in the back of my movie theater who literally screamed like a stock movie sound effect. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And it lasted for a second when he got stabbed. And she screamed, and I was just like, wow. That scream was just like, it was a stock movie scream. And I couldn't believe it. But she got, like, that really affected her. I was just like, holy crap. Fortunately, he doesn't die, of course. But amazing way to end the action. And then, of course, it's like, well, in order for this to actually work, everyone does have to forget me. And then we have what ends up being a trilogy that is just Spider-Man becoming original Spider-Man. And that is such a genius idea that I didn't think they were doing. But it's like, now they've had the super cool fun stuff, and it's like, all right, now we'll figure out Spider-Man. And it's such a good way to end it. Everyone forgets who he is. He's like, all right, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to be Port Peter in the crappy apartment. Would have loved it if they had to do it for Spider-Man 3. That would have been a hilarious reference. But I love what they did with the movie. For anyone who wondered why Sandman was always Sandman, it's because they didn't want to spend the money to de-age him. That was just for random reference. That's why they didn't have him or Lizard in the movie that much. Like, if they healed him and stuff like that. They didn't want to spend too much money to do all that. So that is why he was Sam like the entire time. So I was wondering, I was like, why'd they do that? Even him at the end of the movie is actually reused footage from Spider-Man 3. Like when he does the turn and then the light hits him, that's literally just him cut out of Spider-Man 3 and then turning around. Like he's like not in the movie. He does the voice acting, of course, but they didn't want to spend the money on that, which they clearly spent a buttload on Doc Ock, because I don't know why nobody ever talked about it. It's insane. But it's just insane. Like, it's so good. It was just so good. Literally just was like, at one point, because nobody was talking about it, I was like, is that just what he looks like? Am I crazy that he just aged that amazingly well? Because this has to be the de-aging stuff. But nobody ever said anything, so I started to go crazy. But it was de-aging. So well done. But loved everything they did with that. They, of course, cure everybody. And, Peter does, like, his cool hero thing. And everybody's saved. And everybody goes back. Everybody's wiped clean. And then we get the ending, and it's just Spider-Man being Spider-Man. And he gets a new costume. And it's this bad boy right here. It's super close to this. So this is the Spider-Man Mark IV armor. It's amazing. If you have the Spider-Man game, you've probably seen it. Or if you're at the comics, it's in there as well. Love this costume. That's not the greatest pose ever. It's more of a Wolverine-looking pose, like he's running at you like this. This is literally the first time I've ever posed this thing. I've had it in the box forever. But the armor, or I shouldn't say the armor, his new suit is technically the classic suit, but it was definitely shiny. It was definitely shiny blue, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, that totally looks like the Mark IV Spider Armor. So if you haven't picked it up, they'll probably do classic suit from the movie. If you're not into 1/6 scale figures, I'm just going to tell you now, you're going to spend like $200. So that might just to be like, you want an epic figure, it's an epic cost. But they're so nice, and they're tall, and they're posable, and I shouldn't do that because I don't want to mess up his clothes, actually. That's super nerd talk right there. But, you got to be careful with them. But this outfit for sure is definitely what it looked like at the end of the movie. And so, you had the silver. I don't think the red was shiny. I think it was just the blue that was shiny. But it totally looked like this. I don't even know what the spider looked like. Like, they showed it so quick. I was like, man, I wish they did, like, 10 more seconds of him in this actual suit. Like, I would have loved to have seen him just swing and then, like, maybe actually get to a robbery. And, like, when he throws the first punch, it ends. Something like that. I would have loved to have seen the whole fight, of course. But the costume looked good. Like, it's him running in the snow and stuff. But it reminded me of this. As soon as I saw it, I was like, the shiny silver. It's not all the way blue. I'm pretty sure they had, like, the red line going, like, all the way down. But this was the first thing I thought of. I was like, that's the spider armor. That is the spider armor. And it looks so good. I'm excited for the next movie. Whatever it ends up being. I'm looking forward to it. Spider-Man is officially poor and alone. He is now Spider-Man. So I'm looking forward to that. Especially because they've done the high school thing now as well. So we've had young Peter Parker, and I think they did a good job as far as young Peter Parker, but now we're getting into college Peter Parker, and it's more like original Spider-Man. So it's older Peter Parker, but also nobody knows him type stuff. He'll still work with the Avengers because they know No, Spider-Man is Spider-Man. That's actually always been a big thing in the comics that a lot of people have. It actually is just like the comics. Like tons of people know Spider-Man, but like a couple of people, in the grand scheme of things, a couple of people know that Peter Parker is actually Spider-Man. But everybody's like, yeah, I team up with Spider-Man all the time, but people don't know that it's Peter Parker. So that's actually a huge thing in the comics. Nobody knows who he really is. Like even in the superhero community, it's like a super tiny list. So it's actually kind of cool. It definitely fits the comic universe. And I'm just looking forward to what they do next. They also had, of course, the post-credit sequence where they were like, it's Eddie Brock. What's going to happen to him in this movie? Nothing. Get out of our movie and leave the symbiote. And I was like, okay. I'm okay with that. Once again, it doesn't make sense with that spell. Like, why was he there in the first place? But who cares? Because now they're like, hey, Venom is garbage because it is. Like, I think both those movies really suck. And then they're just like, but the symbiote can be a thing. That works for me. Get him. Hey, bring him back and just have an alternate version. Have him act differently. That's fine by me. Because Venom's just not good. They're just not good movies to me. But we got the symbiote. We got classic Spider-Man. All I need is the little white patches. As long as they put the white patches on the costume, we're good. And then who knows? Agent Venom. I would love to see it, but we'll see how that pans out. I don't think it'll be this version of Flash that'll do it. I think they might just pick a different person to be Agent Venom, which they probably should. This version of Flash, I just don't think fits Agent Venom unless they do something excuse me, to like really change him up. I don't think he fits the Agent Venom from the comics, and I think it would be too much of a departure. Like it can be a departure, but I think it would be way too much because he's way too comedic to become like the Agent Venom we know. They would need like another full movie, and he'd have to be a part of it for that to even be a relevant thing, So it'd be super weird. But either way, we'll see what ends up happening. I really loved it. I do want to see it again, but I feel like I got a bunch of other movies. I still haven't seen Ghostbusters. I still want to see that, but it was good. It was definitely a good movie. Very fun time. All the Spider Folk. That's crazy. Plot holes be damned. The movie's really good, but those plot holes are real crazy, which is why I feel like it's a 10 out of 10 experience, but it's like a 7 or 8 out of 10 movie. Personally, I know that a lot of people are gonna be like that, not for sure, but for me, it's like if I really look at it objectively, the plot holes are so huge, and the beginning is just not as epic as I would have hoped. I would give it an 8. I said 7, but I would give it an 8. It's the plot holes that really make me want to say 7 though, because it's like that's so ridiculous. But as an experience, it's a 10 out of 10. It's a trillion out of 10 experience. Like, it does not effing matter. Like, it's Spider-Man. I don't even know how to really put that into other words outside of you should see the movie if you haven't and I spoiled it. You should see it already. Or you should see it again. Like I plan to. Maybe. We'll see what happens. But it was good. I would love to know your thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Happy New Year's. And of course, thanks for watching.